Hey guys, I wanted to come on here and once again give you a web recommendation to the story I talked about before here on YouTube, I should say, that you can find at deviantart.com by the author, writer / artist Jaquelidor, and that's Metamorphosed to Malleability. And the reason I want to recommend it to you guys once again is because now things are getting really, really interesting, and we are literally 12 weeks away from the 150th chapter or shift, as Jock likes to call it. And the reason I say it's gotten a little bit more interesting because what we all kind of suspected, for those of us that have followed it, kind of came to be. Basically, the main character, Briella, who has these malleability powers to metamorphosize her body into anything or anyone she likes, now is in a situation to where she has to basically grant somebody who wants to use the very same powers that she has to get something called the Kuru, or the Kuru, something like it's called, basically it's spelled, the way Jaquelidor spells it is Curio, something like that. And I guess it's supposed to be some kind of mystical thing or whatever it is, scientific thing that allows itself to be attached to any individual out there and allow its powers to be used by that individual. And basically the latest chapter just came out where Briella has to basically, give over the same formula or recreate basically the same formula that gave her the abilities of malleability and metamorphosizing over to this insane scientist, if you will, that she's met before. And the insane scientist basically wants to use the same powers, like I said, to gain access and connect and become one with this mystical thing or device or whatever it is. So, long story short, let's just say she does what this villain tells her, but as far as we know, at the end of the story, it doesn't turn out well for him. Now, there's no doubt that I think we all know where this is all leading towards as we get to the 150th chapter or shift. And what I'm talking about is the possibility of the one thing we've all been wondering about. You see, Briella kind of hinted at it in this chapter, or kind of mentioned it in this chapter, basically telling the villain, hey, why do you think I didn't give my girlfriend Crystal the opportunity to be like me? Because I wasn't sure. So by basically saying something along those lines, or acknowledging that, you're kind of getting a bit of a hint, maybe a bit of a Easter egg thrown your way of what's to come. And knowing how these writers like Jaquelidor operate at times, they usually like to wait until you get to a big anniversary issue or big anniversary chapter, or in this case shift, to spring the surprise on you, or to spring that moment onto you. And I think what's going to happen, if they don't already do it before then, but I think what's going to happen is by the time we get to 150, if they don't do it sooner, my speculation is Jaquelidor is going to use the 150th shift / chapter of Metamorphosed to Malleability, if not before then, to have Briella successfully give the same opportunity to Crystal. In other words, when we get to 150, expect Crystal and Briella, if you follow the story, to have the same abilities as each other. Basically, Crystal and Briella will both be able to metamorphosize into anyone or anything they want, because they will basically have the same powers. And don't be surprised that if we find out that this Curio, this Curio, whatever it is, that this evil doctor scientist wanted to become one with, that the reason it allowed Briella to have the abilities that she has is because it senses nobility, it senses kindness, goodness, gentleness from her. It senses that she is willing to use these powers for good and to help others. And don't be surprised if when she tries to give the abilities, or tries to at least attempt successfully, hopefully, to do the same for Crystal, that this Curio, as I call it, senses the same things in her. That she has the same, spirit as Briella. In other words, she basically is kind, gentle, sweet, loving, and is willing to help others. And don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if that occurs. Now, here's the thing. This is just mere speculation on my part. For all we know, Jaquelidor could end the entire series by 150 and have Briella be restored. In other words, Briella creates an antidote that removes her powers from her because she doesn't want to cause any more trouble, doesn't want trouble following her anymore. That could happen too. But I have a feeling, though, that since in story, Crystal has discovered, thanks to Briella showing her what she's capable of doing, don't be surprised that if by the time we get to 150, if not before then, because there's a possibility it could happen before, but don't be surprised that by the time we get to 150, Crystal is granted the same abilities. And let's just put it this way. This story is not overall. There are chapters and parts of the story that prove Metamorphosed to Malleability is not for kids. It does have a bit of a, I guess you could say, an R/NC-17 rating to it, if you want to look at it that way. It's got a mature label to it, or at least to certain chapters, that is. It has a, M/NC-17 rating to it for certain chapters and moments. So don't be surprised if Jaquelidor decides that when that moment comes, that he allows both girls to just, in story, really get at it with their power, with both of them having the same abilities and all that. Do not be surprised if you know what I mean. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but just the fact that it's been building up since almost the very beginning, or the initial beginning of when, in story, Briella told Crystal about what she's capable of, and Crystal being acceptive, if not excited about it. Again, don't be surprised. Honestly, don't be surprised whatsoever, because I could see it happening. I can honestly see it happening. I mean, heck, there's a chapter in the story series to where after Crystal comes home from a long, exhausted day of countless conference meetings, and the fact that she was wearing Briella as a suit, as her clothing, I should say, or a part of her in some way, there's a moment in this chapter where she just goes into her home. And as soon as she shuts the door, locks it, she just rips out of her clothes, if you will, completely stark naked, if you will, and tells Briella that, who's, like I said, kind of connected with her, or whatever, to cover her completely from head to toe, where she's just like, featureless. Kind of reminds me of the situation with Ruby Rocker and Demonica when they kind of fused together in the Mystic Makeover webcomic Walk on the Wild Side. Basically, very featureless, faceless, just completely like no identity. And throughout this moment, she has Briella use her powers to turn her into anything she can, any non-inanimate thing she can think of. Like she asked her to do cat girl, slime girl, make her look like Briella, so on and so forth. So it's it's just and the way it ends, like I said, this is one of those chapters that has that NC-17 mature rating to it. So so again, I feel that we're going to get this moment real soon, probably by 150, because why would you, almost since the start of, like I said, Briella letting Crystal know about this, why would you, why would you basically, do a moment like that in one chapter and just, have them have fun, erotically, sensually, whatever you want to call it, throughout all the other chapters at times, and throughout other chapters of the story, I should say, at times, and not probably hint that maybe you're thinking about, giving the same abilities to Crystal as Briella, and maybe you're going to explain perhaps the reason why the Curio, the Curio, allowed Briella to have these abilities, and thus will probably help her along the way to help, or what I'm trying to say. Sorry about that, got a little tongue twisted there. But like I said, maybe perhaps along the way we'll find out why the Curio, the Curio, allowed Briella to have these abilities, and maybe it'll help her, as we get close to 150, to develop a way to grant Crystal the same abilities as well. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be an interesting ride in the next in the next 12 weeks or 11 weeks. Well, actually 12 weeks now. And let me check something. So yeah, according to Google, it's going to be an interesting journey from now till New Year's Eve. Yep, New Year's Eve is when 150 will happen, so something's got to give on that day. You can't just plan out, issuing and releasing shift/chapter after chapter after, shift after shift, chapter after chapter, if you will, every Thursday without realizing that, hey, I'm eventually going to hit my big 150th mark or 200th mark. And in this case, we're looking at New Year's Eve of this year. So he's probably got something planned out for that chapter. And I would not be surprised if that's the chapter released on New Year's Eve of all that going into 2021, that, as I speculated, Crystal gains the same abilities as Briella, and along the way, over the next 5 to 11 weeks, or 5 to 12 weeks, we find out that the reason Briella has these abilities is because the Curio, or whatever it is, senses kindness, senses a gentle, kind soul within that's willing to use these powers for good, as well as to have fun with others, and nothing more. And that perhaps it'll sense the same ability or the same kind of personality in Crystal, and thus, as I said earlier, allow Briella to grant Crystal the same abilities. And let's just say, if that 150th chapter has a mature rating to it, there's going to be a moment towards the end that, it's going to be, like I said, really, let's just say, not for kiddies. Let's put it this way, could be along the lines of the very late night programming you would see on things like Showtime or Cinemax or whatever, if you know what I mean. And you know what? It might be also the start of something we've been wanting to see, a fusion. Perhaps both having the same ability, Jaquelidor will start, trying out fusions, if you will. And having both Briella and Crystal fuse together into someone new. With some practicing, of course. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and kind of give you an updated web recommendation on the Metamorphosed to Malleability story series. Let you know it's getting really interesting, and I suggest check it out. It's by Jaquelidor on Deviant. I'll provide a link down below. And also, he is working on another one that seems to be his second most popular series called Bonding Unlimited. The last chapter he did was Dating Unlimited, and then before that Family Unlimited, and then I think Exercising Unlimited, Working Unlimited, and then the first one Bonding Unlimited. So obviously he's got something big in planned for the next Unlimited. He mentioned in a journal that we wanted to decide on a certain direction it would go in. And I think after what we have seen in all these Unlimited parts, all these previous chapters, we might have a good idea where it's going next. Because one of the chapters allowed the main character to discover the ability to split in two, basically become two separate individuals. So, hey, who knows? Something may come of that. But anyway, though, guys, again, I just wanted to come on here and let you know give you an updated web recommendation to Metamorphosed to Malleability. Check it out. Link will be provided down below. Comment if you like, and I will talk to you all later. God bless. Take care and stay safe.